Okay, good morning, everyone. Sawadee Kap. Welcome to Wat Tung. Good morning. Nice to see everyone here. Today is our Pali Canon and English study group, which is a program where we go through volumes 2 through 13 of the book series that I share over here. This book series is titled The Words of the Buddha, The Path to Enlightenment, Revealing the Hidden. This is where you're learning directly through the words of the Buddha. We do this program a bit different than all of our other courses and retreats. What I do is, of course, start with meditation the way that we always do, but then what I do is I share the words of the Buddha, asking for a volunteer from you guys to see if you would like to read one of the chapters, and the chapters are very short, actually. And then after someone reads the chapter, then I share a little bit of teachings for maybe 5 or 10 minutes on that chapter. Then I open up to any questions that you guys have. So it's more of a study group versus the traditional style of learning that I normally do and the traditional style of teaching. I'll show you guys how it works when we get going. But for us to get started, why don't we just start with meditation, which is what I typically do. I'll start with chanting to ease us into the meditation. Then I'll provide some guidance to be able to help you guys meditate. Then there'll be a period of time where we'll just be meditating together, and then we'll come out of the meditation with some chanting as well. So we have these chanting sheets over there on the table that if you guys would like to chant along, you're welcome to chant along. And these are in the Pali language. The Pali language is the original language of the teachings of the Buddha, that it's captured in this language, and we chant in this language because during the lifetime of the Buddha, they would chant in order to commit the teachings to memory. Nowadays, we don't need to commit the teachings to memory. We have books and videos and podcasts and things like this, but I still do chanting as a way to ease into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. You'll see that there's a lot of admiration and respect for the Buddha here in these chants. I suspect that his students probably created these either during his life or after his death, because a Buddha doesn't walk around with ego and arrogance and try to get his students to chant to him. So I suspect his students probably created these during his life or after his death. So we use these to ease into the meditation, and these aren't any kind of rites or ritual or ceremony or worship. It's not prayer or anything like that. It's just to help kind of invigorate the mind and bring some awareness to the breath and ease into meditation. And then we'll come out with these chants as well. In terms of position of your body, there's 4 positions to meditate. There's seated, lying, standing, and walking. Usually students are learning in the seated position. So if you're in the seated position, oftentimes people like to have a cushion under their rear. Sometimes they like to put their legs off the mat in order to get their hips up in the air, to lessen the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. You can even sit in a chair if you like. There's not just one body position that everybody has to sit in. It's not possible for that to occur. So you'd like your lower body to be nice and comfortable and relaxed. The hands and arms, the Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. And if this is comfortable for you, you could use this, but there's other options here as well. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees, maybe their palms up. Some people like to just rest their hands in their lap. Whatever is comfortable for you. You like your lower body and your hands and arms to be completely relaxed. The upper body should be erect. This keeps the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic, but if you were real rigid, the mind might be overactive or uptight. So by having the sternum up and the shoulders back, it allows you to breathe into the lungs, and it keeps the mind invigorated as you're meditating and active and attentive during the meditation. So as I mentioned, I'm going to ease into meditation with some chanting. You guys are welcome to join along, and then I'll be back with some guidance. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Bhutang Bhagavanhang Apivateyami Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti pisu Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavito Anutero Purisa Namasati Satatawa Manusanang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish your breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then when you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Once the breath is well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out.
อะระหัง สัมมาสัมพุทโธมะคะวะพุทธังมะคะวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาควตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาควโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสคาโตโรกาวิโตอนุเตโรปุริสานามาสติสตาตาวาปานุสนังโอโตภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Again, welcome to all of you guys. Welcome. Nice to see all of you guys. Those of you here at the temple and everyone joining us online, welcome to everyone. This is our Pali Canon and English study group where we study the words of the Buddha together as a group. And the way that we do this is I invite a volunteer here at the temple to read a particular chapter. You can see these chapters here. Let's see, this one is... it's about two and 3/4 of a page. That's actually kind of long for the ones that we normally do. Sometimes they're only about a paragraph or so, or even half a page. But what I do is invite you guys to read this using the microphone so that the people online can hear. And if there's anyone in Zoom, you're welcome to electronically raise your hand and we'll see that. And you can actually open up your mic and read as well. And then after someone reads a chapter, then I share some teachings on that chapter. And then I open up to any questions that you guys have. And oftentimes students are reading these before class and or after class because you've got the words of the Buddha here. Then you've got a reference which takes you back to the original source teachings in the original Pali Canon. And then you've got words from me to be able to help you reflect on this and to be able to practice it in your daily life. So you've got all this available to you for each one of these discourses where you can get these golden nuggets from the Buddha about all the various practices. This particular book is volume 11 of the book series. It's titled The Realms of Existence. And this is where you're learning about the hell realm, the animal realm, the afflicted spirit realm, the human realm, and the heavenly realm. And this isn't something that you would normally study right from the beginning of your journey to enlightenment. It's usually something that you wait until volume 11, right? So sometimes there's students that are brand new that come into this class, and that's fine. You can
learn here as well. But just understand that some of the things you read here, it might be a little bit, far from where you are right now on your journey, but nonetheless, you'll probably study this at some point. But just understand that it's getting into things that sometimes require a bit of a foundation in other aspects of your teachings. So this is the realms of existence. Now we're studying the heavenly realm is what this particular set of chapters is. We're in chapter 71 of this book series. So is there someone here that would like to volunteer to read this chapter? Sure, go ahead, Siddharth.
Three bases of meritorious activity. Monks, there are these three bases of meritorious activity generating wholesome karma. What three? The bases of meritorious activity consisting in giving, the basis of meritorious activity consisting in virtuous behavior, and the basis of meritorious activity consisting in meditative development. Here, monks, someone has practiced the basis of meritorious activity consisting in giving to a limited extent. He has practiced the basis of meritorious activity consisting in virtuous behavior to a limited extent, but he has not undertaken the basis of meritorious activity consisting in meditative development. With the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn among humans in an unfavorable condition. Someone else has practiced the basis of meritorious activity consisting in giving to a middling extent. He has practiced the basis of meritorious activity consisting in virtuous behavior to a middling extent, but he has not undertaken the basis of meritorious activity consisting in meditative development. With the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn among humans in a favorable condition. Someone else has practiced the basis of meritorious activity consisting in giving to a superior extent. He has practiced the basis of meritorious activity consisting in virtuous behavior to a superior extent, but he has not undertaken the basis of meritorious activity consisting in meditative development. With the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in companionship with the heavenly beings ruled by the four great kings. There, the four great kings who had practiced supremely the basis of meritorious activity consisting in giving and the basis of meritorious activity consisting in virtuous behavior, surpass the heavenly beings ruled by the four great kings in 10 respects: in heavenly lifespan, in heavenly beauty, heavenly happiness, heavenly glory, and heavenly authority, and in heavenly forms, sounds, odors, flavors, and physical objects. Someone else has practiced the basis of meritorious activity consisting in giving to a superior extent. He has practiced the basis of meritorious activity consisting in virtuous behavior to a superior extent, but he has not undertaken the basis of meritorious activity consisting in meditation with the Tavatimsa heavenly beings. There, Sakka, ruler of the heavenly beings who had practiced supremely the basis of meritorious activity consisting in giving and the basis of meritorious activity consisting in virtuous behavior, surpasses the Tavatimsa heavenly beings in 10 respects: in heavenly lifespan, heavenly beauty, heavenly happiness, heavenly glory, and heavenly authority, and in heavenly forms, sounds, odors, flavors, and physical objects. Someone else has practiced the basis of meritorious activity consisting in giving to a superior extent. He has practiced the basis of meritorious activity consisting in virtuous behavior to a superior extent, but he has not undertaken the basis of meritorious activity consisting in meditative development. With the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in companionship with the Yama heavenly beings. There, the young heavenly being Suyama, who had practiced supremely the basis of meritorious activity consisting in giving in virtuous behavior, surpasses the Yama heavenly beings in 10 respects: in lifespan, beauty, heavenly happiness, glory, authority, in heavenly forms, sounds, odors, flavors, and physical objects. Someone else has practiced the basis of meritorious consisting in giving to a superior extent. He has practiced the basis of meritorious activity consisting in virtuous behavior to a superior extent, but he has not undertaken the basis of meritorious activity consisting in meditative development. With the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in companionship with the Tusita heavenly beings. They are the young heavenly beings Santusita, who had practiced supremely the basis of meritorious activity in giving and in virtuous behavior, surpasses the Tusita heavenly beings in 10 respects: in heavenly lifespan, beauty, happiness, glory, authority, and in heavenly forms, sounds, odors, flavors, and physical objects. Someone else has practiced the basis of meritorious activity consisting in giving to a superior extent, in virtuous behavior to a superior extent, but not in meditative development. With the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in the companionship with the heavenly beings who excite in creation. There, the young heavenly being Sunimitta, who had practiced supremely the basis of meritorious activity consisting in giving and in virtuous behavior, surpasses the heavenly beings who excite in creation in 10 respects. Someone else who has practiced the basis of meritorious activity consisting in giving, in meritorious activity consisting in virtuous behavior to a superior extent, but not in meritorious activity consisting in meditative development. With the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in companionship with the heavenly beings who control what is created by others. There, the young heavenly being Vasavati, who had practiced supremely the basis of meritorious activity consisting in giving and the basis of meritorious activity consisting in virtuous behavior, surpasses the heavenly beings who control what is created by others in 10 respects: in heavenly lifespan, heavenly beauty, heavenly happiness, heavenly glory, and heavenly authority, and in heavenly forms, sounds, odors, flavors, and physical objects. These monks are the 3 bases of meritorious activity.
Okay, thank you, Siddhart. So let me help you guys understand how to use a discourse like this for your benefit, because the goal of the path to enlightenment isn't to be reborn in heaven. The Buddha is explaining this as part of his teachings, but this isn't something that you need to penetrate into, and you're not aspiring to be reborn in the heavenly realm. You're looking to get to enlightenment and training your mind to cultivate this wisdom to be able to eliminate discontent feelings so that you can get to enlightenment in this life and not be reborn anywhere at all. So while the Buddha is teaching this, his core central teachings are things like the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the 5 Precepts, and all these other teachings that you need in order to actively train your mind. But he did teach these types of things as well to be able to help you fully understand this natural law of Gama, of cause and effect, or action and result. This is essentially teaching you the natural law of Gama based on your practice and based on certain things that you're doing in this life. He's explaining if you don't get to enlightenment, this is what would transpire. And this whole discourse is centering around these 3 things that some of you guys have recently learned, which is referred to as the way of practice, is practicing generosity, moral conduct, and meditation. This is what you do on a daily basis. As a practitioner aspiring to get to enlightenment, you would need to be practicing generosity, which is giving and sharing without any expectation of anything in return. This is going to help you eliminate craving, desire, attachment, which is the cause of discontentedness.
Then you would like to practice the moral conduct from the Eightfold Path, which is right speech, right action, and right livelihood. This is going to shut down the harmful things that you're doing in the world through your speech, actions, and livelihood. So then less and less harm is coming back to you. And then you would like to practice meditation, which is also training your mind to uproot and eliminate certain unwholesome qualities and then cultivate certain wholesome qualities. So this is what you're doing on a daily basis. It's referred to as the way of practice. And here the Buddha is explaining the various development of these three things and how it relates to rebirth. And this is where you can really glean some insight about the natural law of karma. So this first one, he's saying to his student, someone has practiced the meritorious activity of giving to a limited extent, meaning not so much. He has practiced the basis of meritorious activity consisting in virtuous behavior or moral conduct to a limited extent, meaning they still got some unwise moral conduct that they're conducting. But he has not undertaken the basis of meritorious activity consisting in meditative development. So this person isn't meditating. They're practicing some generosity, they're practicing some moral conduct, but they're not meditating. And he's saying, okay, when this person dies, they're going to be reborn among humans in an unfavorable condition. Okay, so here you can see the results of those decisions. Then as he goes, he's now increasing what he's talking about in terms of giving. Now this person's practicing to a middling extent of giving, and then the virtuous behaviors to a middling extent, but still not practicing meditation. Now this person is reborn in a favorable condition in the human realm. Then now there's a superior extent of giving, a superior extent of moral conduct, but still not meditating. Okay, this being is reborn in the heavenly realm. And then from there, there's increasingly higher and higher levels of heaven. And the way that the Buddha taught these different realms, there's actually multiple hells, there's multiple heavens, and there's higher and higher qualities of heaven. So from here, the individual would be practicing more and more of this generosity and this moral conduct, but still not practicing meditation, all the way to the point of this last one, where the individual is still practicing generosity to a superior extent, still practicing virtuous behavior to a superior extent, but still has not undertaken any meditative development. And they're reborn in this heavenly realm. So what you can see here is you can understand the three aspects of the way of practice of generosity, moral conduct, and mental discipline or meditation. But then you can also see how the path to enlightenment isn't just about meditation. Sometimes people think that they can just meditate their way to enlightenment. You can see that there's other things that are needed too, because the same things that lead to enlightenment are the same things that lead to rebirth in the heavenly realm. So if you weren't cultivating your mind at all, there's the potential for one to be reborn into the lower realms. But as you're cultivating your mind more and more, you can ultimately potentially get to enlightenment as you're practicing these teachings and training your mind. But if you fall short of that for any reason, there's the potential to be reborn back into the human realm or into the heavenly realm. So the same things that lead to your improvement on the path to enlightenment and actually getting to enlightenment are the same things that lead to this rebirth in the heavenly realm as well. So you can see here where the Buddha is talking about giving, that's very important, and as well as the virtuous behavior, that's also very important. So in this situation, the person hasn't done any meditation at all, but they're still being reborn into the heavenly realm. This is the cause and effect, or the action and result. So you can see that you can't just meditate your way to enlightenment, that you would need to practice generosity, you would need to practice a certain amount of moral conduct. And then as you bring in the meditation, that's what's going to really help you to support the giving and support the moral conduct. So this is how you can use a discourse like this to glean information about what can you be doing today to be able to get to enlightenment, practicing generosity, moral conduct, and meditation. And then you can use it to see that even without meditation, there's significant improvement to the mind by practicing. But of course, you need meditation to be able to get to enlightenment. So you can see how meditation isn't the end-all, be-all, that it's not, while it is a priority in your practice, you can't just meditate your way to enlightenment. You need these other teachings as well.
So any questions on this one? Those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or in Zoom, you can raise your hand electronically and ask any questions that you like. Any questions here? Yes, ma'am. If you could get a mic there, you guys can pass those around and share them.
My question is number 8. So the bottom line. So he's reborn in a companionship with the heavenly beings who control what is created by others. So that means, if someone's really, someone's behavior is really good, and then so he accumulated a lot of virtues, right? So in this world, but so when he reborn, so it said, heavenly beings who control what is created by others. I could understand. So I'm not so sure. So I have no idea what kind of place with the heavenly beings who control what is created by others. So would you explain it in other words?
I'll give you an answer, but I'm not going to be able to explain that, because during the lifetime of the Buddha, he described these multiple aspects, these multiple categories of the heavenly realm, same thing that he did with the hell realm, because he had experience in all these different realms, and he observed his past lives in all those different realms and all these different categories. So he explained what we call a certain cosmology. A cosmology is how they thought about the world in terms of these realms of existence during his lifetime, where it's very detailed and very specific. And I haven't seen anywhere in his teachings where he talks specifically about anything more about the heavenly beings who control what is created by others. You know, I take it on face value of what it's saying, but I haven't ever been able to independently verify that part of it for myself. I have had contact with heavenly beings and beings in all these 5 realms, and I do have memories of times of being in some of these realms, but not to the same degree that the Buddha had, and based on the cosmology that the Buddha had during his lifetime. So I can't really explain exactly what he means by that, but I just take it on face value of what he's sharing. But I encourage people to get to enlightenment, just like the Buddha. The Buddha encouraged people to get to enlightenment, but he's explaining to you the world around you, because these various realms, oftentimes people think of them as being really far away, like the heavenly realm is way in the sky and the hell realm is deep down in the core of the earth. And what you come to understand, if you ever have contact with these beings, is that they're all right here in the same time and space as us, that you can have contact with hell beings, you can have contact with heavenly beings. And the reason why this is helpful, and I suspect the reason why the Buddha even taught about all these various realms, is because as you're lifting the pollution out of your mind, it's very likely that you can have contact with these beings in your life now as a human being. You can experience contact and communication from hell beings, from afflicted spirits, from heavenly beings. And if you didn't understand this, you might think you're going crazy when you start lifting out this pollution out of your mind. So it actually helps you in this life that he's teaching all these core central teachings to eliminate this pollution out of your mind. And as you do, you can oftentimes have contact with these beings in these various realms. You might have memories of your own past lives as well. And that's really helpful as you are lifting out this pollution out of your mind, because if you didn't understand that these things exist, you could potentially feel like you're insane or going crazy. So I don't have an answer for you of exactly what he meant by this, because I haven't seen anywhere that he describes it. But you don't necessarily need to know the cosmology that existed during his lifetime. If you understand the 5 realms, and we tend to think of them more generally today, just hell realm, we don't really segment that. The animal realm, which I'm sure you understand, you've been in contact with many animals. Afflicted spirits, which some people refer to as hungry ghost or ghosts. The human realm, you understand that realm because you're in that realm. You have lots of contact with beings in the human realm. And then the heavenly realm, these beings as well. And I've gone through at different times and explained these different realms and what the qualities of those beings are in those realms. And if you'd like to talk about that, we can talk about that. But as long as you understand that more generally, you'll be fine. You don't need to
in my opinion, understand all the level of detail in the cosmology that existed during the lifetime of the Buddha.
Okay, thank you. So maybe the by others means the cosmology and the universe, kind of those image, right?
Yeah, the cosmology is like how they thought about these different realms. Like here, like you saw up here where he talks about Saka, the ruler of the heavenly beings, right? Like they had this idea of this being who was like the heavenly being, right? The ruler of all the other heavenly beings. You don't need, you see this coming across the Buddhist teachings, you'll see it from time to time, but you don't need to understand that in order for you to eliminate discontentedness in your mind within this life. So it's something that we can learn about. It's something that we can understand that was going on during the lifetime of the Buddha. But whether you retain that information or not, it's not going to impact whether you eliminate your discontent feelings or not, because it's all about purifying your mind of craving, anger, and ignorance, cultivating wisdom, and training your mind. That's what's going to lead to your elimination of your discontentedness.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Let's see. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. I find it interesting to see someone else for number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8. They're all practicing meritorious activity and virtuous behavior, but none of them are practicing meditative development at all.
Mm-hmm.
The
Buddha is describing individuals that function in this way so that he can help you understand the natural law of karma. Right? That's what he's explaining here. So there's going to be people in the world who are practicing generosity, who are practicing a certain amount of moral conduct, but they're just not meditating. They don't commit themselves and they're not dedicated necessarily. They're not having the diligence, where nowadays I think people really emphasize the meditation and not so much the generosity and the moral conduct, where really in order to get to enlightenment, you need to be doing all 3 of these things. In order to get to enlightenment. So that's what I would encourage you to do. But what this gives you insight into these 3 aspects of the way of practice, and how it's not all about meditation, but you need to meditate in order to get to enlightenment. Like my son, he's learned a lot of the teachings and he practices a lot of the teachings, but he doesn't meditate. And I have reminded him from time to time that in order to get to enlightenment, he's going to have to meditate. But he's in that state where his mind is like quite peaceful and quite joyful. He experiences discontentedness maybe once or twice a year, maybe 3 times a year, and it's very minimal discontentedness, even having not meditated very much. He's meditated, maybe one time he meditated for like 2 weeks straight, and then I saw him meditate another couple of times here and there, but he hasn't really had to meditate very much because he started learning these teachings very young, and he didn't have much pollution in his mind. But that little bit of discontentedness that he's experiencing, in order for him to completely get rid of it out of his mind, he's going to need to meditate. So he's a good example of somebody like this, that he practices generosity, he practices moral conduct, but he doesn't really practice this meditation. And this is one of the things you can learn about heavenly beings, is heavenly beings tend to experience exclusively pleasant feelings. They don't experience painful feelings, or neither painful nor pleasant. So heavenly beings tend to be fairly complacent. They're complacent in their practice because they're only experiencing pleasant feelings. So you can have human beings that are in this world as a human being who may be on their way to heaven, and they're essentially living almost a heavenly existence in the human realm, because their mind is fairly peaceful and they're experiencing exclusively pleasant feelings, and they don't really experience very many painful feelings, and they're on their way to the heavenly realm. But if they would do some meditation, it could stamp out that little bit of craving that's in their mind, and they could get to complete enlightenment in this life. And my son's a good example of that he has this complacency that's in his mind because he lives with a mom and dad who practices the teachings very well. He doesn't have much craving in his mind, very little, and he lives a pretty peaceful life. but he's complacent in his meditation practice. So you can find individuals that are like this. Even brand new students, sometimes I have some brand new students sometimes that come here that haven't really practiced much of the teachings of the Buddha, but somewhere along the line they learned about generosity or moral conduct from various family members, because these are natural laws of existence. Like my grandmother taught me, if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all, right? This is part of right speech, kind of, if you understand right speech. And there's other teachings like this that you can learn from your grandparents, your teachers, your mentors. So people can sometimes be practicing generosity and moral conduct, but they just haven't ever either learned meditation or they learned it and they're just not dedicated enough. They're complacent because their life is pretty peaceful, not experiencing too much discontentedness. And these beings are on their way to the heavenly realm, like what the Buddha is describing here. But in my opinion, it would be much wiser for them to go ahead and practice the meditation and get to enlightenment in this life and be done with the whole cycle of rebirth. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions here online. Let me just check one more time. Hello, Mary. I see you saying hello there. Nice to see you. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions online. So we'll move on to the next chapter, which is chapter 72. Would someone like to read this one? Let's see what we've got here. It's 2 pages. Shorter than what Siddharth had. Anyone would like to read this one? Sure. Go ahead, Ava.
Hello. Yeah. The generous one who would surpass the other. Here, Venerable Sir, there might be 2 disciples of the perfectly enlightened one equal in confidence, virtuous behavior, moral conduct, and wisdom, but one is generous while the other is not. With the breakup of the body after death, they would both be reborn in a good destination, in a heavenly world. When they have become heavenly beings, would there be any distinction or difference between them? There would be, Samana, the perfectly enlightened one said. The generous one, having become a heavenly being, would surpass the other in 5 ways. In heavenly lifespan, heavenly beauty, heavenly happiness, heavenly glory, and heavenly authority. The generous one, having become a heavenly being, would surpass the other in these 5 ways. But Venerable Sir, if these 2 pass away from there and again, become human beings, would there still be some distinction or difference between them? There would be, Samana, the perfectly enlightened one said. When they again become human beings, the generous one would surpass the other in 5 ways. In human lifespan, human beauty, human happiness, human fame, and human authority. When they again become human beings, the generous one would surpass the other in these 5 ways. But, Venerable Sir, if these 2 should go forth from the household life into homelessness, would there still be some distinction or difference between them? There would be, Samana, the perfectly enlightened one said. The generous one, having gone forth, would surpass the other in 5 ways. 1, he would usually use a robe that has been specifically offered to him, seldom one that has not been specifically offered to him. 2, he would usually eat alms food that has been specifically offered to him, seldom alms food that has not been specifically offered to him. 3, he would usually use a lodging that has been specifically offered to him, seldom one that has not been specifically offered to him. 4, he would usually use medicines and supplies for the sick that has been specifically offered to him, seldom those that has not been specifically offered to him. 5, his fellow monastics, those with whom he resides, would usually behave toward him in an agreeable ways by bodily, verbal, and mental action, seldom in disagreeable ways. They would usually present him what is agreeable, seldom what is disagreeable. The generous one, having gone forth, would surpass the other in these 5 ways. But, Venerable Sir, if both attain arahantship, would there still be some distinction or difference between them after they have attained arahantship? In this case, Samana, I declare there would be no difference between the liberation of one and the liberation of the other. It's outstanding and amazing, Venerable Sir. Truly, one has good reason to give alms, a donation, and do meritorious deeds, since they will be helpful if one becomes a heavenly being, again becomes a human being, or goes forth. So it is, Sumana, so it is, Sumana. Truly one has good reason to give alms, a donation, and do meritorious deeds, since they will be helpful if one becomes a heavenly being, again becomes a human being, or goes forth. This is what the perfectly enlightened one said. Having said this, the fortunate one, the teacher, further said this: as the stainless moon moving through the sphere of space outshines with its radiance all the stars in the world, so one accomplished in virtuous behavior, moral conduct, a person endowed with confidence, outshines by generosity all the selfish people in the world. As the 100-peaked rain cloud, thundering, covered in lightning, pours down rain upon the earth, overwhelming the plains and lowlands, so the perfectly enlightened one's disciple, the wise one accomplished in vision, surpasses the selfish person in 5 specific respects: lifespan and glory, beauty and peacefulness, possessed of wealth. After death, he rejoices in heaven.
Okay, thank you very much. Very beautiful teaching here. Okay, so what this person is asking the Buddha is two people who are living, and one practices generosity and the other one doesn't. You know, what's the result? What's the karma? What's going to be the result of this? And the Buddha walks through that, through these various scenarios. So ultimately what the Buddha is explaining is that by practicing generosity, this generosity is coming back to you through your rebirth. As you are reborn, you're experiencing the results of that generosity. And then even if you're coming back into the human realm and someone is going forth, meaning they're becoming ordained, then this generosity that they practiced in a previous life is helping them in this life as well, in this new life as well. And then ultimately what the Buddha shares is that this student asked about if you attain enlightenment. Where is it? There it is. If you attain enlightenment, if both attain arahantship, that means you've attained enlightenment. Is there any difference? And the Buddha's like, no, these two people are exactly the same because they've purified their mind. It doesn't mean their personality is the same, their character is the same. It doesn't mean they're going to tell the same jokes or anything like that. It just means in terms of the quality of their mind and what they're experiencing in life. They're going to continue, they're going to experience that peacefulness, that calmness, serenity, contentedness with joy. It's going to be the same. But for that person who was not generous, in order to get to enlightenment, they're going to have to practice generosity in order to get to enlightenment. You wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment without practicing generosity. An enlightened being isn't going to be selfish and holding on to things very tightly. So that's what the Buddha is sharing here. And that's how you can use a teaching like this, is to understand what is the real core of the message here. The message is practicing generosity is going to help you improve the quality of your mind. And you can understand that it's helping you to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, that mental longing, strong eagerness, the cause of all discontent feelings. Because the opposite of generosity, which generosity is living open-handedly and sharing with others, the opposite of that is holding on to things very tightly. And that's what craving, desire, attachment will do. When you have that in your mind, you'll hold on. It's my money, it's my clothes, my jewelry, my house, my friends, my mom, my computer, my phone. Everything's mine, 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 mine. So wherever you see your mind doing that and you're kind of holding on to things, share, right? If you notice that you're attached to your clothes and you don't want to let go of your clothes, start donating some of your clothes. Or if you're not able to donate them, let some people wear your clothes, like your brothers, your sisters, your friends, your family members. Allow people to wear some of your clothes. Or if you're really attached to your jewelry and you're holding on to your jewelry really tightly, give some of it away or let other people wear it at different times. This will train your mind to let go. You can do this with various aspects of your life, whether it's clothing or jewelry or money or food. You can share your food. This is really helpful to train the mind to let go and not hold on. And this will help you to eliminate your discontent feelings because you're eliminating craving, desire, attachment. Any questions on this? Sorry about that, Keely. I just displayed the words for you. Apologize. I didn't have the screen shared for Zoom. Okay. No questions, huh? Okay. So let's see. The next one here is chapter 73. Let's see what this one's all about. This one's quite long. We're probably not going to read this whole thing. Yeah, this is quite long. Let me see if I can summarize it for you guys. Simile describing the happiness in heaven. Okay, so what this simile is describing is how the beings in the heavenly realm are experiencing exclusively pleasant feelings. They don't experience painful feelings, or neither painful nor pleasant. And the Buddha goes through and describes the level of happiness that these beings experience. That's really what you need to know in terms of this particular chapter. There's a lot of detail here that you could go into, and you could read all that detail. He really elaborates on it quite extensively. You can see how much wisdom he had about all the different aspects of these realms. But the message here is that the heavenly beings are experiencing pleasant feelings. They don't experience painful, neither painful nor pleasant. So they don't experience sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. They don't experience any of those types of feelings. So any questions here? Okay. So let's go to the next one, see what the next one is. Some of these are really quite detailed. I was reviewing these last night. And let's see this one. This one's kind of interesting. Let's see how long. Don't remember how long they are. These are quite long. Yeah, that one's very, very, very long. Okay. And this is actually an excerpt. If you go back to the original discourse, oftentimes it's even longer than this. This is an extraction. If you can imagine the Buddha having these words in his mind to be able to speak this on his own, and then if you can imagine the students of his that had learned with him throughout his life, and then by the time he died, they remembered it to be able to write it down. This shows you how crisp the enlightened mind is and how much of a deep memory it has to be able to speak this. Like for us to just read it off a page, it's like, whoa, that's quite challenging for you to maybe even read these number of pages out loud. But if you can imagine the Buddha speaking these words and then people remembering those, chanting them for many, many years, chanting this word for word, and then eventually writing it down, that shows you the ability that the human mind actually has. Here, I don't know that we need to read this one. What the Buddha is talking about here is this upasata observance. What this is each month there's, I think it's a week, I think it's 7 or 8 days where the Buddha would encourage people to increase their practice from the 5 precepts to the 8 precepts. The 8 precepts are a deeper level of teaching that help you get closer to arahantship, to help you get to enlightenment. As an individual who's just starting, they will learn the 5 precepts and practice those. But oftentimes, if you're looking to enhance your practice, you might move to the 8 precepts and be practicing those. And that's something that I have in volume 3 is the 8 precepts. And I explain them to you there so that you can understand what they are. And if you'd like to increase the amount of training that you're doing, you can increase to the 8 precepts. So here he's just describing what cattle workers will do during this particular time and kind of how they change what they do as a cattle worker, not related to his teachings, but just what they do in terms of practice. Then these other individuals, what they do in relationship to that period of time. And then he talks about what his students do, the noble ones, what they do during this particular period of time. And then here he's describing what they actually do. And then as you get down here, let me show you something. There's a place, here it is. This is kind of like, is this it? Yeah. This is him describing the 8 precepts in a little bit more of an elaborate way. He's talking about how one will eliminate killing. He's talking about how one eliminates stealing and they don't steal. He talks about how they eliminate sexual activity because this helps you to eliminate sensual desire, eliminate lying and false speech. He talks about eliminating substances that cause heedlessness because that takes you away from your mindfulness and your awareness of mind. So he's talking about that. Then he's talking about eating once a day, which is essentially helping you to learn how to eliminate sensual desire, where you're not just eating based on emotion, because maybe you get a phone call at 5 o'clock at night and you get upset and you get sad or you get angry, and now maybe you might turn to food as a way to get to pleasant feelings. But if you're just eating once a day, you just have this specific time that you eat each day, and your mind's not going to eat outside of that time frame. Well, you don't need to eat just once a day in order to get to enlightenment, but you will need to learn how to observe your mind. And if it's going towards food in order to get pleasant feelings, you're going to need to train your mind to no longer do that, to eat based on sustaining the health of the body, not based in emotion. So that's what this next one is here. Then he's talking about abstaining from dancing, singing, music, unsuitable shows, adorning. What that does is that helps you to eliminate sensual desire. You don't have to eliminate this stuff entirely from your life, but you will probably need to distance yourself from this, or you will need to distance yourself from this for a period of time. Train your mind to not base your feelings on music, because music will lift your mind up into an excited state. And then there's certain music that if your mind is unenlightened, it'll drop down into the sadness or other feelings like this. So when you go away from music for maybe 3 months, 6 months, a year, you can train your mind to not be affected by the music. And then eventually you might decide to listen to music again, but your mind won't be forming its inner feelings based on that music. So that's what the Buddha is teaching here. And then he's talking about not wearing beautiful scent or adorning the body with beautiful garlands or wearing scents. What this is helping you to do is realize non-self, where you're not associating this body with who you are. Whereas if you decorate this body, you put scents on the body, you do all these things to adorn the body, this is because the mind's having personal existence for you to go out in the world and wanting to be perceived in a certain way. So one of the things you might decide to do at some point, it's up to you if you ever decide to do this, is to not wear any jewelry for an extended period of time, not to wear makeup, to not wear certain things that beautify the body. And this will help you to train your mind to let go of clinging to the body, thinking that this is who you are. So that's something you can do to help you realize non-self when you're ready to potentially do that. Then this next one, he's talking about sleeping on the floor. What this does is it helps you to eliminate conceit. If your bed is really high and luxurious with lots of fluffy pillows and things like this, the mind will tend to have a certain amount of conceit or arrogance or pride or boastfulness. Whereas if you sleep low to the floor, it helps you to eliminate conceit. It's not something you do for 1 week or 1 month, but for an extended period of time. Here he's explaining that all arahants or enlightened beings essentially sleep on the floor. Here in Thailand, it's challenging to find a high bed, and Thai people know that. So if you go shopping for a bed, they're pretty much from the knee below, and this is the distance that you would like. For me, I just put my mattress flat on the floor. I don't have a box spring or a frame or anything, and this helps you because as you go down into the bed and you get up out of the bed multiple times throughout the day, it helps to humble the mind. It helps to ground you. So when you go back home, if you have a really high bed, it would be wise to bring this down and make it lower. This will help you. And over a period of years, this is just one of many things that will help you eliminate the ego in the mind. So this is one of the ways to help you with that. So that's what he's describing that his practitioners do during this period of time. And then he goes through a lot of detail of that. Do you guys have any questions on this? Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Sorry. So in this chapter, it said about the bed height. It's interesting for me. So because in Japan, usually a lot of people use a bed because of the physical ability. So when they're getting old, so it's difficult to knee or so any activity is difficult. So the bed is very comfortable. But actually, so if I like to improve inside myself, so maybe the lowest bed would be better.
Yeah, if you put your bed either on the floor or very close to the floor below your knee. This will really help you to work on eliminating the ego. There's other things you need to do as well in order to help the ego be eliminated, but this is one of the things, very impactful thing. And as I mentioned, it's not going to be a 1 week or 1 month thing, but you would like to be sleeping that way for an extended period of time for multiple years. And this will gradually help wear away the ego and the boastfulness and the arrogance where someone's putting themselves above others. Because that's going to be detrimental in your life if you're having this arrogance and putting yourself above people, because you'll tend to look down on others and you might even talk to people in that way. And that's problematic in your life. So you would like to be humble and view everybody as equal, so that when you go out into the world, you don't see yourself as being above people and you're not judging people as well.
So the image is like, so kind of equal and flat, and everyone is like on the same level. It's not like it's a look down to something. So I could have such an image to lie down or to sleep in a lower level.
Yeah. So, in society, there's a lot of people who might consider themselves above people, and there's people who consider themselves below others. And this is detrimental to the mind as well. And even though other people think that way, people might think the president or prime minister or some celebrity is really high in society. And they might think somebody who maybe drives a taxi or sweeps the streets is maybe low. Other people might think this way, but you would like to get to the point where you don't think that way. Even if other people are thinking that way, you would like to think about everybody as equal. So the prime minister and the president of a country, they have an important role in society, and we would like to have wise individuals to lead our countries, right? That's really helpful. But we also like to have clean streets. We also like to have nice transportation too. And these people are providing an important role in society as well. So rather than see one role as being higher than the other, it's important for you to look at everybody as equal. So that way, when you're walking down the street and you see somebody sweeping the street, you can smile at them and you can say, "Hello, sir," or "Hello, ma'am, how are you?" Right? You can be very polite to that person, just like you can be to the president or prime minister. What you're looking to do is get to a practice where you can function the same no matter who you're around. That if you're around the president or prime minister, your mind's just as calm, just as peaceful, just as polite, just as respectful as you would be talking to this street sweeper on the street. You're just as polite, just as calm, just as peaceful, just as joyful talking to either of these people. Whereas if your mind has to figure out who's above me and who's below me, and now you are polite and respectful to these people, but you're not polite and respectful to these people, your mind's having to constantly switch back and forth. And that's very challenging to the mind. It causes a lot of work. And then if you're in mixed company where you're at a social event and different people from different parts of society are there, you'll really struggle trying to function in one way with these people and another way with these people, and your mind's having to constantly switch back and forth like that. Where what you're trying to do is get to this permanent practice where your mind can be at ease and you just treat everybody equally. You treat everybody the same. You don't change how you function based on whether you're talking to the prime minister or someone who's sweeping the streets, that you can just function the same, polite, kind, friendly, respectful with everybody. And this is what will put your mind at ease, and you'll be able to be peaceful and joyful no matter who you're around, because you just treat everybody equally.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, so now let's see what the next one is. Yeah, these, when I was reviewing these, this is another one that I don't think we need to read. This isn't going to necessarily help you today in order to get to enlightenment. What the Buddha is talking about here is essentially where the heavenly beings reside. And he's talking about them residing in these various plants. So that's a really short one that we don't necessarily have to read. Here, this is another one where he's just talking about these heavenly beings and some various details about them. I don't think we need to necessarily read that one. There's a bunch of them here that I didn't think that we're going to necessarily need to read. Here, the same thing. Yeah, I don't think that we need to read any more of these, if I remember correctly. Yeah, these are all, this is taking us up to 80. So yeah, we'll just finish here with understanding the one that we just shared, which is related to the 8 precepts. Do you guys have any questions about anything else, whether it's related to these teachings or anything else related to the teachings of the Buddha? Do you guys have anything you'd like to discuss before I end class? Yes, ma'am.
One more question. Do you know in some of them it was like, oh, if you're doing these good things, you'll get like heavenly beauty and heavenly fame and stuff. But those are things like we're not really meant to appreciate to get to enlightenment too. So why is it that it's like, oh, this will be good if you get these things?
The Buddha isn't encouraging you or incentivizing you to do that. He's explaining to you how the world is so that you can understand. So like he also explains this related to human beings as well. You haven't seen that one yet because it's in the previous part of the book. But for example, some people wonder like, why am I so beautiful, or why am I so ugly, or why is my mind so sluggish? He explains all of these things. So even though right here, these particular chapters, we're talking about beauty and these kinds of things, if you read this entire book, there's discourses where he's talking about why you have a sluggish mind, why someone experiences rich and fame and fortune and these kinds of things. He's explaining to you the natural law of karma so that you can understand how the world is, because sometimes someone might be very disgruntled about how they appear or how they look, or they might be very conceited about how they look. So the Buddha is explaining to you, what have you done in a previous life to experience what you're experiencing in this life? And that's one of the things that this book focuses on, rather than kind of like dangling a carrot and saying, okay, if you want to be reborn in heaven, you need to do these things now in order to get to heaven. Instead, the Buddha is saying, throughout all of his teachings, if you look at the totality of his teachings, he's sharing, this is what you need to do to get to enlightenment in this life now and escape this whole cycle of rebirth, rather than aspiring to be reborn into a heavenly realm or any of the other realms either.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yes, sir.
About not particularly these chapters, but what I come across in the teachings of the Buddha is he recommends people to train in these things, and eventually there's this pattern that I see, that each person goes in seclusion and they spend one rain retreat or like a year or two, and then they get to enlightenment. And there's a lot of emphasis of seclusion and meditation. So and I also see this in some of the teachers in the Thai forest tradition, where they say that you would like to meditate perhaps 12 hours a day, so that things come up. 2 hours is perhaps not enough. And I have seen you recommend pretty much saying meditate 2 or 3 times a day. And I'm wondering if this is coming from your personal verification, and how do you see, because it seems there's this view that I feel I don't know, because I would have to actually try it, and that trying is going to take a year or two.
Sure. So a couple of things here is the reason why the Buddha taught seclusion is a couple of things. One is you need to get to the point where you're completely peaceful and joyful being alone. And you won't be able to do that unless you spend some time alone. So during the lifetime of the Buddha, they would go out into the forest and they would be there for 6 months or a year or longer, but they would still come out for food, right? They would interact with people daily. It's just that they would spend a lot of time alone at different times. So retreating from the world to that degree as a household practitioner is not practical, because you're going to have a job, you're going to have people that you need to interact with. So as a household practitioner, one of the ways that you can still accomplish the same thing is you can go to do things like go to the movies by yourself, you can go to the mall by yourself, you can take yourself out to dinner, go to dinner by yourself. Sometimes when we do these things, we only envision doing them with other people, but if you get used to doing these things alone from time to time, this will help you get to the point where you're comfortable and content and peaceful and joyful, whether you're with people or with you're alone. You can go to the park by yourself, you can go on holiday or vacation by yourself, you can do all these kinds of things to essentially accomplish the same thing, but you're not completely retreating from the world the way that an ascetic would be able to do. By retreating from the world to a large degree, what it does is it cuts down the contact that you have with other beings. So it's eliminating a significant amount of your gamma production, because in order to produce gamma, you have to have contact with other beings. So, for example, I went into seclusion one time for about 3 years. It wasn't complete seclusion, but I really limited the number of people that I spent time with. Very minimal people, like maybe 4 or 5 people was the amount of contact that I had with people. And if you do that for an extended period of time, it kind of helps to burn off your unwholesome karma that you've created in the past. And now, as you work on your own mind, then you can reemerge from that, and now you can rebuild your life with lots of wise decisions. So this is why the Buddha taught it. But this isn't necessarily practical for everyone to be able to do that. At that time, I had worked a lot in my own business, and I had a lot of money, so I didn't necessarily need to be too involved in the world. I could go into this seclusion, but a lot of people don't have that ability. They're going to need to have some type of work. So that's why I suggest people to go to the park, movies, dinner, vacation, things like this. This will help you to accomplish the same thing gradually over a period of time. Then the other one you talked about is meditation. I confirm that 2 or 3 sessions per day for 30 minutes or more is what you need. In the lifetime of the Buddha, you can see a discourse where they talk about him meditating 3 times a day. It's not practical to sit around and meditate for 12 hours a day. It's just not possible. And for someone who's doing this, in my opinion, they haven't understood the middle way, that you can't just meditate your way to enlightenment. You're going to need to practice right intention, right speech, right action, and all these other things. Going into meditation for those extended periods of time, it can be kind of like a seclusion. And I understand that there's some ascetics that choose to do that, some monks that choose to do that. But ultimately, they're going to have to emerge out of that meditation, and they're going to need to go practice right speech in the community. And if they're not able to do that, it doesn't matter how much meditation you're doing. If someone still can't practice right speech, then they're not going to be able to get to enlightenment. So this is why sometimes I talk about, like, somebody, if they go live in a cave for 10 years and their mind is very peaceful living in that cave, they're not enlightened yet, because they haven't entered into the world and experienced all this impermanence of interacting with people and, hearing music and doing all these things. They're going to need to live in the world in order to get to enlightenment. So while the Buddha was in the forest for 4 years, he came out in order to get food and interact with people at different times. He wasn't completely secluded and isolated from society, and he needed that in order to interact and develop his right speech and right action. But sometimes people have the impression that the Buddha must have went into the forest for 4 years and then he didn't come out at all, and they think that that's what you need to do in order to get to enlightenment. Sometimes people have the impression that the Buddha sat under the tree, that he meditated for an extended period of time, and then he instantly got to enlightenment. So in these kinds of places, you'll see an extensive amount of emphasis on meditation. And what I would encourage people to do is come to the middle, where the world itself is wide open, right? There's like all these things going on in the world. It's wide open. But oftentimes when people go away to these silent retreats, they're meditating for 12 hours a day. That's completely on the other side of the spectrum, where everyone's on their best behavior. It's almost like a petri dish where everything's quiet and everyone's meditating and nobody's doing anything harmful. And then when they come out of that silent retreat, they go back into this wide open world, and their practice potentially falls apart, and it's very difficult for them because they haven't really integrated the world and their practice together. So that's why when I teach what I consider to be the middle way, where we come here and we learn for 3 hours or so, then we go outside and do things, and then we come back and we learn some more. And this helps an individual integrate what they're learning into their life. And that's what ultimately you're going to need to do, because if somebody builds this life where, let's just say for 3 years, they're meditating 12 hours a day. Well, okay, that's on one side of the spectrum. What do they do when they can't meditate for 12 hours a day? They're not going to be able to do that for the rest of their life and live a sustainable life. They're going to need to enter into the world and to be able to practice this middle way. So if you build a life where your mind is quite peaceful for 3 years, meditating 12 hours a day, that's almost like being in the cave and you're isolated in this cave. But now when you come out of that, can you come back into the world and be peaceful and joyful? That's what's going to determine whether your mind is actually enlightened or not. So rather than try to go to that extreme, what I encourage people to do is instead learn a bit, integrate that into your life, and then learn how to conduct your life with that new integrated teachings, which is a bit of generosity, a bit of moral conduct, a bit of meditation. And now by integrating it slowly but surely into your life, you build this sustainable practice that can sustain you long term towards all the way to the end of your life, rather than these two sides of the extremes.
Thanks for that. One distinction I'm seeing, like, I'm appreciating what you're saying about this. However, it's that when, let's say, I'm watching a movie or something, I cannot be mindful because I cannot watch the breath, right? Versus when I am meditating or doing anything that is where I can be really mindful. And I'm wondering if that quality, being present few hours a day through the dedicated meditations versus being present pretty much the entirety of the day, makes a difference in bringing out the unwholesome karma itself. And I do think I agree on that. The sustainability part, that is a challenge in the other side, but it's like, is that a temporary measure to bring out the unwholesome karma?
So your goal isn't to observe the breath all throughout your day. You're not going to be able to do that. The body's going to breathe naturally as it breathes. When you're observing the breath in meditation, that's just to help you cultivate your mindfulness and your concentration, and then have that post or pillar that you bring the mind back to when you're meditating. Then in daily life, you practice the quality of mindfulness and concentration. And if you're not able to do this now, you can do it while you're watching a movie or while you're driving down the street. You can practice mindfulness and concentration. These two qualities are to be cultivated in the mind, so that then you can practice them at all times, no matter what you're doing. You don't need to focus on the breath in order to now be practicing mindfulness and concentration. If you've cultivated that in meditation, you should be able to arise those qualities in meditation and then be practicing them at all times during your day. And then in terms of meditating for 12 hours a day to bring up the unwholesome karma, if you have unwholesome karma in your life, you can't like force that to come out, right? You can't like say, for using the example that I sometimes use, where if you 3 years ago have lied on a tax form, and now in the present moment you're getting a notice from the government that you've lied on your taxes, and now this is the unwholesome karma coming back to you. You've got this penalty, this interest, and this payment. You can't meditate your way to make that unwholesome karma come back to you. You can put your mind in situations that require it to let go of a craving, desire, attachment, and that you're kind of creating an environment in which the mind has the ability to let go of a certain craving, desire, attachment. But you can't meditate your way to get that unwholesome karma from the government to come back to you. It's just not possible for that to occur.
So I get that part. That would be something about a precept, right? But there's still unwholesome karma, like the fetter of conceit or the fetter of restlessness, which would not necessarily be about precepts. Would those fall under that category?
So the fetter of conceit is a great example to illustrate what I'm sharing with you, is that arrogance, that pride, that boastfulness that one might have with the conceit in the mind. If you're just by yourself alone, you won't necessarily notice this. And while you're meditating, you might not necessarily notice this. It can come up in those times, but it's not as significant as going out into the community and being around people and see, does your mind judge other people? Because that's part of the conceit. The mind's going to judge others and put yourself above and below people. So by interacting in the community, you can observe your mind with mindfulness and see, are you judging other people? Are you putting yourself above people or below people as you're interacting in your day-to-day life and you're building this sustainable life for yourself? Are you able to go to work and not put yourself above your coworkers? Are you able to be at a business meeting and not have conceit and arrogance? Can you have a really good idea and choose to share it in this business meeting in a humble way? This is what's helping you to eliminate your conceit. Just being locked away and isolated, meditating 12 hours a day isn't going to allow your mind the opportunity to practice eliminating your conceit and doing that in a life that you're creating for yourself. So that's why you need to train your mind to be alone. You need to train your mind to not be lonely when you're by yourself, and to be peaceful and joyful when you go to the movies, when you go to dinner, when you go on holiday by yourself. But you need to also train your mind as part of your practice to be in the world and operate in your relationships without conceit. This is a great example. And you wouldn't be able to accomplish that just purely through meditation alone. It's not going to help you to be able to do that.
Thanks. I see that part. I have a question on something you said earlier about being able to be mindful when watching a movie. And so there can be a certain amount of mindfulness about the thoughts that are appearing in the mind when I'm watching a movie, but I may not be necessarily mindful of the body, or I would say definitely not the body, because that's a very immersive experience. So it seems to me that the mindfulness in meditation is all the four foundations, but let's say when I'm working, it's part of the four foundations, perhaps thoughts, mental objects, but not the body.
Yeah, so right now you don't have your mindfulness fully developed. That's why you're having difficulties doing that. So let's walk through an example, like watching a movie. Let's say you're watching a movie, and now what you would like to do is just have awareness of the four foundations, which means if you notice any bodily sensations associated with discontentedness arising, you would like to be able to know that and be able to cut it off and let it go there. And then if you miss it, it's going to become a feeling like agitation or annoyance or anger. You'd like to notice it there, cut it off there. And then if the condition of the mind, which is a few hours or a few days, and then those mental objects. So if you're watching a movie and you're just watching the movie, you're just enjoying the movie, but say something's happening in the movie and you're starting to notice this bodily sensations associated with the discontentedness arising, you can be watching the movie and be alerted to that at the same time. That, whoa, what is that? There's those feelings, and then, or there's the bodily sensations associated with the feelings that are about to arise. Whoa, there they are. Cut them off and let them go. So your mindfulness is almost like on autopilot by the time that you're fully cultivated, and you can be aware at all times. Right now, it sounds like it's not quite fully developed yet, and that's understandable. You just continue to develop your meditation, breathing mindfulness meditation, continue to develop your generosity, and then practice your mindfulness outside of meditation as well. And it doesn't require you to focus on the breath like you do in meditation. That's the exercise. It's kind of like if I was I'll use the example like a pole vaulter, like I usually use. If I go into the gym and I exercise in a certain way, weight training, cardiovascular, agility training, and now I go do my sport of pole vaulting. But also, when I'm going about my day, I'm aware of my back, that if I'm going to pick up this box, I'm going to squat and keep my back straight and now pick up the box with my legs rather than use my back, because I know that that's a wise thing to do based on my training in the gym and based on the sport that I do. So now with your mindfulness, if you're exercising the mind in meditation, when you're going throughout your day, you're not just rushing through your day and making a whole bunch of quick, rapid decisions. You're just being aware of your mind and like being observant of what's going on in the mind as you're eating or as you're talking or as you're driving. You're just having general awareness of your mind. That's how I teach mindfulness from the beginning is just general awareness. But more specifically, you would like to be clued into any bodily sensations associated with arising discontentedness. And you can get to the point where you're aware of those. If you're not right now, you can get to the point where you're aware of that. Same thing of the feelings. You can get aware of those feelings when they're coming in, so that when you're watching the movie, maybe you missed it as a bodily sensation, but now you notice your mind's frustrated about what just happened in the movie. That's your mind forming a conditioned feeling based on the condition of what I'm seeing through my eyes, what I'm hearing through the ears. I'm now going to form an inner feeling based on that thing. And now when you notice the feeling, cut it off and let it go. Or if you're watching the movie and there's this general agitation, like the condition of the mind, and you're noticing this general agitation of something that happened 3 hours ago. You're watching the movie and you're kind of disgruntled about something that happened three hours ago. That's the condition of the mind that is there, and you'd like to cut that off. And maybe you need to turn off the movie and go out for a walk or go for a bike ride to kind of redirect the mind. This is what you can develop, not only the ability to be aware of these things, but then also the ability to cut it off and let it go, breaking up the ability of the mind to form that conditioned feeling.
So this is very helpful. I see the bodily sensations with certain fetters, like sensual desire you mentioned is one, but I wonder for something like conceit or just ignorance, like making an assumption, there would not be a bodily sensation as far as I can tell. It would just be like a mental movement. Or is that not so?
Yeah, the bodily sensations, those 4 foundations of mindfulness, those are mainly associated with sensual desire. You can experience some of that with a personal existence view, right? But the sensual desire is still involved because you're hearing something perhaps where somebody disparages the way that you look, right? This self-image, but the central desire is involved because it's the 6 sense bases that's taking in that contact. With something like conceit, you're not going to necessarily have bodily sensations with that. That's where your mindfulness and general awareness of the mind, you have to realize, wow, I'm being quite arrogant here. I'm being quite boastful. Let me stop doing this. You need to be able to see and understand what that fetter is. That's the observance of the mental object, right? So there's these bodily sensations, there's the feelings, there's the condition of the mind, which conceit will have a certain condition of the mind. And then there's this mental object of the actual conceit itself. And the feeling in this example is the arrogance, right? Or the boastfulness. There's not necessarily a bodily sensation associated with this in all situations, that you might not notice a particular bodily sensation. But you need to be observant enough of the mind to see that arrogance, to see that pride, to see that boastfulness, to see you judging another person. And that's what the mental object is doing, is it's having the mind to judge this other person. You need to be able to observe that through your general awareness of the mind. And that's where you then cut it off and let it go, because you know it's an unwholesome quality.
This is very helpful. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let me know if you need further help, because getting to the point where you can observe those bodily sensations all the time and be able to cut off and let go, you're really close to enlightenment at that point. So if there's some situations where you're seeing bodily sensations, if it's associated with sensual desire, okay, that's wonderful. And then be able to cut it off and let it go there. But then some of these others, you're not going to necessarily be able to see it. Because there's not necessarily a bodily sensation associated with conceit. But if you're getting to that point where you're starting to notice the bodily sensations, be able to easily cut them off, enlightenment is within the next 1, 2, 3 years, potentially, very near to enlightenment at that point. So keep working in that direction. It's very helpful. Okay, any other questions? All right. So what I'll do then is just end class by thanking all of you guys for joining. For those of you guys online, thank you all for deciding today's the day you'd like to learn the teachings of the Buddha. And you're always welcome to come back for our future classes. Tomorrow is the group learning program. I'm going to be teaching chapter 22 of volume 1, which is titled Mental Health, a Modern Day Delusion. I'm going to be teaching you about depression and anxiety and ADHD and ADD and bulimia and anorexia and schizophrenia and a lot of these things that nowadays people are thinking that they're mentally ill and there's a biological thing that's causing this. I'm going to show you how the teachings of the Buddha are explaining what it is that you're experiencing in those types of situations, or your friends or your family members are experiencing, and how you can actually train the mind to eliminate those symptoms. You can eliminate the symptoms of ADHD and ADD and depression and bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. All these things are perfectly explainable in the teachings of the Buddha. So I'm going to explain it to you and help you see the problem and help you see the solution to resolving them. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to be doing a guided breathing mindfulness meditation with the community, and then open up to any and all questions you guys have. That's what I do on Wednesdays. It's just meditation and then random questions from anybody who would like to ask questions. So have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.